I was standing in a cavernous, dusty and ridiculously overpriced tile warehouse in the industrial part of town, the smell of curing grout and wet marble hanging heavy in the air. I was arguing, calmly but firmly, with a foreman named Bill about the structural integrity of the hand-painted Italian marble coping he was trying to charge me $15,000 for. This was for their new pool. The pool I was paying for. My phone buzzed in my purse. I glanced at it, expecting another alert from my bank or perhaps a message from my own friends. Instead, I saw a text in the Maxwell family group chat. It was from my son James. "Mom, we love you, but you're just everywhere. All the time. Simone and I need some space." I stared at the words, the foreman's voice fading into a dull roar. Everywhere. Suffocating. I was everywhere because I was trying to stop him. This very foreman from swindling my son out of $15,000 for tile that would crack in a year. Before I could even process the sting, the insult, a second notification popped up at the bottom of the message, a small digital exclamation point on his betrayal. Simone Maxwell liked this message. She didn't just agree with him in private. She liked it. A public cosign. A gleeful, triumphant, digital high five right there in the family chat where she knew I would see it. I looked at the $15,000 invoice in my hand. I looked at their words on my phone. "I'm a retired pediatric cardiac surgeon. For 40 years my job was to hold tiny, fragile, broken hearts in my hands. My entire life was about diagnosis and precision. When I saw a sickness and infection erode, I didn't get emotional. I diagnosed it, and then I cut it out." I took a deep, steadying breath. I put the invoice down on a dusty pallet of tile. I texted back, my fingers steady, "Got it. I'll give you all the space you need." My phone didn't just buzz after that. A few minutes later, after I'd made 4 short, precise phone calls, it began to explode. It began to vibrate so violently on the table it sounded like a trapped animal. "Let me tell you how we got here. Let me tell you about the $11,000 a month life support system I had them on. And let me tell you what happens when a surgeon, a real one, finally decides to pull the plug." Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. First, let me tell you who I really am. Because my son James and his wife Simone have absolutely no idea. To them, I am Dr. Althea Maxwell. Mom, the widow, the retiree. I am a quiet, elegant, slightly stuffy old woman. I am old money, which in their minds is a polite term for old and irrelevant. They see my quiet penthouse apartment, filled with art and books instead of 70-inch televisions. And they find it boring. They see my classic tailored clothes, Armani but 10 years old, and they find them dated. They see my life of quiet reading, symphony attendance and board meetings for the hospital's charitable foundation, and they find it slow. They mistake my quiet for weakness, my precision for pickiness, my retirement for frailty. They forgot, or perhaps never bothered to learn, what I retired from. For 40 years I was not just a doctor, I was Dr. Althea Maxwell, Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery at the University Hospital. I didn't just go to work. I held the literal beating, desperately fragile hearts of newborn babies in my hands. I performed 12-hour, microscopic surgeries that required a level of focus, precision and steady-handed nerve that they in their world of branding and marketing cannot even begin to comprehend. My stuffy life involved making life or death decisions before my first cup of coffee. My boring mind was responsible for pioneering 3 separate surgical techniques that are now standard procedure. My life was not slow. It was a 4-decade high-stakes sprint against death, and I won far more often than I lost. My late husband Robert was a federal judge. We didn't just make money, we were the establishment. We were the old money they so desperately, so clumsily tried to emulate. Our world was one of substance, not of image. We built things, careers, foundations, a legacy. They build content. My retirement isn't a small pension and social security. It's a massive multi-million-dollar portfolio of investments, properties and trusts that I manage with the same meticulous, unforgiving precision I used to use in the OE. I don't live on a pension. My investments generate an income that dwarfs what my surgical salary ever did. My son James mistakes my quiet elegance for frailty. He forgets that these quiet hands, the ones he finds so dated, have performed miracles. He forgets that the boring mind he and his wife dismiss is the same mind that could, and did, outmaneuver and outthink hospital administrators. insurance company lawyers, and the very specter of death itself for 40 years. They thought they were dealing with a frail old lady, a gentle retiree to be managed and milked. They had no idea they were poking a dragon, a very precise, very wealthy and suddenly very annoyed dragon. Let's be clear about my life, because it's the context for their betrayal. I am a woman of systems, of structure, of consequences. In my operating room there was no room for error, no space for excuses. A misplaced suture, a moment's hesitation, a millimeter's miscalculation, and a life was over. A family was destroyed. You don't get second chances in pediatric cardiac surgery. You get it right, or you fail. So I learned to be perfect. I learned to be precise. I learned that you must have a plan, a backup plan, and a contingency for the backup plan. I learned to read not just the monitors but the people, the nervous intern, the overconfident resident, the panicked nurse. My job was to manage not just the tiny failing heart, but the entire complex high-stress human system around it. My life, outside the OER, reflected this. Robert and I, we were a formidable team. He with his brilliant analytical legal mind, and I with my surgical diagnostic precision. We built a life not of flashy borrowed luxury but of solid, unshakable foundational wealth. We didn't lease. We bought. We didn't follow trends. We invested in classics, art, real estate, blue-chip stocks. Our money wasn't loud, it was silent. It was the kind of wealth that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that just exists. Permanent, unassailable, the kind of wealth that affords the ultimate luxury, privacy. When Robert passed 5 years ago, the grief was immense, a chasm, a structural failure in the very foundation of my life. But the structure of my life, the one we had built together, held. The foundations were strong. My finances, our meticulously planned estate, were in perfect autonomous order. I retired from surgery a year later. My hands, after 40 years of relentless microscopic work, were perhaps not as steady as they once were, but my mind was sharper than theirs. I moved from our large historic family home, which I donated along with a sizable endowment for its upkeep to the university, into the penthouse I had bought decades earlier as an investment. A beautiful, quiet, light-filled space downtown. It became my sanctuary. It was filled with art Robert and I had collected over a lifetime, and books, thousands of books on history, art, medicine and philosophy. My life became a quiet one. Yes. I had earned the quiet. I had earned the right to read, to sit on charitable boards, to manage my wealth, and to simply. But my son James, he was not like us. He was a different creature entirely. He had my kindness perhaps, but none of my steel. He had his father's appreciation for the finer things, for art and music, but none of his work ethic, none of his intellectual rigor. He was soft. He was a beautiful, charming, and deeply fundamentally weak man. He had all the trappings of a good education, which we had of course paid for, but none of the drive, none of the grit. He was, in the cold diagnostic terms I understood, a disappointment, but he was my only child, the last living piece of Robert, and I loved him. A quiet, dutiful but increasingly weary love. I wanted him to be happy, and I mistakenly believed that meant protecting him from failure, which is of course how he met some. James is my only child. My love for him, as I said, is a deep, foundational and often painful thing. I see the good man he could be, the man his father was, buried beneath layers and layers of insecurity and learned helplessness. He has a prestige job as an art gallery director. A vanity project I helped fund through a modest donation to the gallery's endowment fund, which miraculously secured him the position. It's a job that allows him to wear expensive suits, attend champagne receptions, and rub elbows with the wealthy, but it pays him in real terms next to nothing. It's a job that is 90% image and 10% work, which I suppose suits him perfectly. He's a man who has never truly worked a hard, desperate day in his life, because I and his father, in our love and perhaps our folly, made sure he never ever had to. And then, 5 years ago, at one of those very champagne receptions, he met Simone. If James is a soft, malleable, and ultimately decorative piece of clay, Simone is a blast furnace, all heat and noise and sharp, dangerous edges. She is a lifestyle influencer, a brand consultant, a content creator, a woman who has built a brand. That is the word she uses for everything. Brand. Out of thin air, out of filters, out of a relentless 24/7 performance of effortless luxury. perfect motherhood and most, laughably, generational wealth. It is of course a complete and utter top-to-bottom fraud. Her generational wealth is my wealth. The effortless luxury is funded entirely exhaustingly by me. From the moment she married James, she saw me not as a mother-in-law, not as a source of love or wisdom, but as a source, a resource, the silent, ever-present old money bank that funded her entire performance. She resents me, I know. She resents me with a passion that is almost primal, because my real, quiet, understated, earned wealth makes her fake loud, performative, borrowed wealth look cheap and desperate by comparison. She hates that I am the source. She hates that my signature is the one that validates the checks, that my name is the one on the trust accounts. She hates that for all her branding and hustle, she is at the core a dependent, a very, very high-maintenance, deeply ungrateful dependent. She sees my presence, my quiet visits, my occasional gentle questions about their spending. Another new car, Simone. Was that truly necessary? Not as support, but as a constant, judgmental, silent reminder that her entire life is a lie. She is a parasite, a very stylish, well-manicured parasite, and she hates the host that feeds her. And this simmering, toxic resentment, is what she whispers into my son's ear, night after night, in their ridiculously oversized, heavily mortgaged house. She has convinced him, my weak, pliable, desperate-to-please son, that I am the problem, that I am the one judging them, controlling them, suffocating them, not the crushing weight of their own self-inflicted debt, their own insecurity, their own desperate, fraudulent lifestyle. Me, my presence, my quiet observation, my very existence is an affront to her carefully constructed and utterly false brand. To understand what happened next, you have to understand the allowance. It's the system I created to manage them, to contain their financial recklessness, to protect my grandchildren from the inevitable consequences of their parents' profligacy. When James and Simone wanted to buy their first real house, the massive soulless 7,000 square foot McMansion in that gated community they live in, they couldn't get a loan, of course not. He had no real income and her influencer business was a cash hemorrhaging joke, a digital vanity project that cost more in props, designer clothes, lavish vacations than it ever brought in. They came to me full of tears and practiced apologies for their bad luck with finances, their unexpected expenses. I, a surgeon, not a barbarian, didn't just give them money. That's messy, that's emotional. It invites chaos. I am a woman of systems. I structured their life. I saw it as a form of long-term critical care, a financial life support system. I didn't just give them a down payment. I co-signed for the mortgage on the house. This was my first and greatest mistake, my first compromise, and it made me legally, financially tethered to their irresponsibility. I knew it was a mistake, even as I signed the papers. But James had looked at me, his eyes full of tears, and said, "It's for the kids, Mom. For Maya and Leo. To give them the stability, the childhood I had." He knew exactly which button to push. My love for my grandchildren. To manage my risk. To create some semblance of control. I set up a separate, dedicated trust account, the James Maxwell Lifestyle Trust. From this trust, I paid their major non-negotiable life-sustaining bills directly. I did not trust them with a lump sum. I controlled the arteries. The $1,000 a month wasn't a guess. It wasn't a gift. It was a precise, itemized surgical calculation. A budget I had designed for them. A life support system to keep their fragile brand from flatlining. It breaks down like this. Every single month without fail. $4,500 the monthly mortgage payment, principal, interest, taxes and insurance on their ridiculous oversized house, paid directly from my trust to their lender. $2,200, the combined lease payments for their two matching, top-of-the-line Land Rovers, a brand necessity Simone had insisted, for her mommy blogger aesthetic and to project the right image at their country club. Paid directly from my trust to the leasing company. $3,000 the combined monthly tuition for their two children, Maya 10 and Leo 8, to attend the most elite, absurdly expensive private school in the city. A school I chose, foolishly believing it would give my grandchildren the solid, intellectual foundation their parents so clearly lacked. Paid directly from my trust to the school's bursar. $1,300 a stipend. This was the only part that went directly into their joint checking account. This was supposed to be for their variable expenses, utilities, the country club dues which they insisted were essential for networking, and the army of landscapers, cleaners and nannies. Yes, they still had a nanny despite my help, required to maintain their perfect performative life. I am quite literally funding their entire existence, the roof over their heads, the cars they drive, the education of their children, the very grass under their feet. It all flows from me. This is the $11,000 a month chain I have around their necks. A chain I had forged out of a misguided sense of maternal love and familial duty, and they, in their breathtaking arrogance, had begun to mistake it for a fashion accessory, a designer necklace they were entitled to wear, and were now apparently chafing against. So why was I everywhere? Why was I suffocating them? What, you might ask, could possibly have prompted this sudden desperate text message-based need for space? It was the pool. Because 6 weeks ago Simone, in her infinite restless bottomless pit of ambition, decided her brand needed a pool. Not just any pool, mind you. Not a simple kidney-shaped hole in the ground where the children could happily splash and be normal kids. No, Simone, having just seen some other influencers' feed, needed a $250,000 custom-designed negative-edge saltwater Italian marble-tiled infinity pool with a built-in grotto, a swim-up bar, a fire pit lounge and a full commercial-grade outdoor kitchen. It was, she insisted, a crucial Q4 investment in their family wellness brand. It would, she claimed, add over $500,000 in value to the house, a house she didn't own and was already mortgaged to the hilt. It was, in short, a $250,000 prop for her Instagram feed. They begged. They pleaded. They presented me with spreadsheets, which were, I noted with a surgeon's eye for detail, riddled with basic math errors and glossy, laminated vision boards. James, my son, my weak-willed, beautiful, disappointing son, came to me, his face etched with that familiar weak, practiced anxiety, the look he used when he was about to ask for something truly breathtakingly exorbitant. Mom, he'd said, his voice a low pleading murmur, refusing to meet my eyes. It's the last piece of the puzzle. It will finally complete the house. It will make Simone so happy. You know how stressed she's been lately. Stressed from the sheer crushing exhaustion of spending my money. Stressed from the relentless 24/7 labor of performing a life of leisure. And I, in a moment of profound, inexplicable, foolish weakness. Perhaps it was the anniversary of Robert's death. Perhaps I was just tired of the fighting. Perhaps my own loneliness had eroded my good judgment, my desperate desire to maintain some positive connection with my son, my only family. I agreed. I agreed to pay for it. A 65th birthday gift to myself. I'd called it a bitter, private, self-deprecating joke, as I signed the initial financing papers that moved the money from my private investments into the lifestyle trust account. But I am Dr. Althea Maxwell. I am a surgeon. I am a builder. I am not a woman who writes a $250,000 check and just walks away trusting it to the whims of an Instagram influencer. And a man who can't balance his own checkbook. If I am paying for a $250,000 pool, I am going to supervise the $250,000 pool. From the excavation to the final polish on the tile, I will be the project manager. I will be the inspector. I will be the one approving every single invoice. So, yes, for the past 6 weeks I had been everywhere. I was at their house at 8 a.m. sharp, in my sensible boots, my own hard hat on, arguing with the foreman, Bill, about the rebar spacing for the concrete pour, which, as I'd suspected, he was trying to skimp on to save a few bucks. The specs call for 12-inch centers, Bill. This is 18, fix it. I was there in the afternoon, running my hand over the newly delivered pallets of Italian marble, checking for hairline fractures and color inconsistencies, questioning the grout mixture. This is not the non-slip commercial-grade grout specified in the contract, is it? Bill, this looks like a cheaper interior-grade mix. It'll do in 6 months. I was the one who caught them, just yesterday, trying to install a cheaper inferior-grade residential plumbing pump than the high-capacity, commercial-grade one specified in the contract, a cost-saving measure that would have burned out under the strain of a negative-edge filter system in under 2 years, flooding their equipment shed. This was why I was suffocating them. I was everywhere because I was protecting my own very significant investment from their casual, inattentive, it's just mom's money negligence, and the contractor's predictable opportunistic attempts to cut corners. My presence, my questions, my competence was a daily, unwelcome, stressful intrusion. It was a constant, irritating reminder that this wasn't their project, it was mine. And that is what they couldn't stand. My competence, my presence, my control over my own checkbook was a silent, daily judgment on their own lack of all three. They didn't just want my money, they wanted my absence. The tension in that house for the past week had been thick enough to cut with one of my old favorite surgical scalpels. My daily meticulous presence on the pool site, their ravaged muddy crater-filled backyard, was clearly grating on Simone's last nerve. She had, I suspect, envisioned simply manifesting a pool, posting a coming soon graphic on her Instagram, then, a few weeks later, posting the big reveal of a perfect finished sparkling blue oasis, funded by me, requiring absolutely no effort, stress, or, God forbid, oversight from her. Instead, she got a diligent, demanding, and deeply knowledgeable project manager, me, who questioned every line item, every delay, every sloppy bit of workmanship. A project manager who, unlike her, could actually read a blueprint and a contract. Her passive aggression, usually a low, steady hum of discontent, had escalated to a high-pitched, frantic, almost daily whine. "Oh, Althea," she'd say, her voice dripping with that fake saccharine sweetness that set my teeth on edge. She'd come out onto the muddy patio in her $400 pristine white yoga outfit, holding her green sludge detox smoothie, and watch me arguing with the foreman about drainage grades. "Are you sure about that tile you chose? The gray? It's a little dated, don't you think? I saw this amazing iridescent glass tile on Instagram. It would be so much better for the brand. So much more, now." The tile I chose was classic, elegant, hand-painted, non-slip Italian marble, the very tile she had originally demanded after seeing it in an Architectural Digest magazine at her hairdresser's. The iridescent glass tile she now wanted, the one she saw on Instagram, would have cost an additional $40,000, been lithely slippery when wet, and would have looked dated and tacky in about 6 months. "Must you be here every single morning, Althea?" she'd complain later, just loud enough for me to hear from the next room. In a private and likely staged for my benefit phone call to one of her equally vacuous influencer friends. "It's just so stressful. The contractors are all on edge, they're intimidated. You know how controlling my mother-in-law can be. She's a retired surgeon, you know. Thinks she knows everything about everything. It's suffocating. I can't breathe in my own home." The contractors were on edge. Bill and his crew knew what they were doing. They knew how to cut corners, how to substitute cheaper materials, how to swindle a client who wasn't watching. I was stressing them out, simply by watching, by being competent. James, my son, my weak, spineless, collateral damage son, was caught in the middle, as usual, trapped between my checkbook, which was funding his wife's $250,000 dream, and his wife's escalating daily narcissistic frustration with my interfering presence. He chose, as he always did, the path of least resistance. He chose her. He began to treat me with a sullen, avoidant disrespect that was, in its own way, more painful than her open hostility. He'd mumble, "Hey Mom," when he saw me in the morning, then immediately disappear into his office, the converted, unused formal dining room, and close the doors. He stopped answering my direct questions about the project, replying only with non-committal, one-word grunts. His eyes glued to his computer screen, where I knew he was probably playing online chess, not working. I knew they were fighting about it. The house, for all its vaulted ceilings and open concept design, offered little acoustic privacy. I could hear the muffled, angry whispers from their master bedroom at night. Her voice, sharp, insistent, cutting, repetitive, his low, pleading, defensive, and ultimately inevitably yielding. The problem, I knew, was me. My presence, my control, my refusal to just write the check, shut up and disappear, to be the silent, invisible, ever-flowing ATM their lifestyle required. The night before the text, the argument must have been a bad one. A real knockdown, drag-out fight. I heard a door slam, hard enough to rattle the cheap light fixture in the hallway outside my guest room. I heard Simone's voice, not whispering, but raised in a sharp, cold, furious command that cut right through the drywall. "Fix it, James. Just fix it. I am done. I am done. I can't build my brand in this construction site, with her questioning every single tile, every nail. I am suffocating. Get her out of my life. Get her out of my house. Handle it." And so, the next morning, my weak, spineless, desperate to please son fixed it. He handled it, with a cowardly, passive-aggressive public text message sent to the family group chat while I was literally standing in a dusty warehouse, 30 miles across town, approving a $15,000 invoice for his wife's pool. The sheer, breathtaking, spectacular entitlement of it. It was almost impressive. I was standing in the tile warehouse. The place was cold, cavernous, and smelled of concrete dust and curing grout. The foreman, Bill, A large, weary-looking man who clearly knew he was being overcharged by his own suppliers and was trying with a kind of weary desperation to pass that cost on to me, was holding a clipboard and an invoice. The invoice, which I had already mentally audited and found to be inflated by at least 20%, was for the first, non-refundable $15,000 deposit for the hand-painted non-slip Italian marble tile. He was waiting impatiently for my signature, my authorization. "Dr. Maxwell," he pressed, shifting his weight, "my guys are waiting on this. I can't lock in the lot number from Italy without the deposit, and this quoted price is only good till noon. We're on a tight schedule here." I nodded, my eyes scanning the fine print on the invoice. All deposits non-refundable, 30% restocking fee on all custom orders, no exceptions. I was about to countersign to initial the order but with a firm handwritten addendum striking that ridiculous predatory restocking fee, when my phone buzzed in my purse. I held up a hand, a silent one-moment gesture to Bill, a gesture of authority he clearly resentfully recognized. I pulled out my phone. I didn't recognize the number. No, it wasn't an unknown number. It was the Maxwell family group chat, the one Simone had created, mostly I suspect to post passive-aggressive inspirational quotes about living your best life, and to send out links to her blog posts about generational wealth, my generation her wealth. I rarely looked at it. I opened the chat, and there it was. A new message, from James. Posted just seconds before. "Mom, seriously. We need to talk. You're here every single day. We're tired of seeing you everywhere. You're suffocating us. Simone and I have been talking, and we need you to just give us some space. Please." I read the words once, twice, a third time, the foreman's voice, the warehouse noise, the distant sound of a forklift. It all faded into a distant, dull underwater roar. "Tired of seeing you. Suffocating us. Give us space." This wasn't a private call. This wasn't a difficult but necessary face-to-face conversation. This was a text message, a cowardly, passive-aggressive, public declaration of my unwantedness posted in a group chat where he knew his wife would see it, where he was, in effect, performing his loyalty to her by publicly humiliatingly disrespecting me. He was handling it. I looked at the $15,000 invoice in my other hand, the invoice for their pool. I looked at the text on my phone, the text telling me I was everywhere, while I was here 30 miles across town, literally working for them, protecting their investment which was in fact my money, but their asset. The rage when it came, was not hot. I am a surgeon. My rage is never hot. It is cold, it is precise, it is an utterly clarifying anger. The kind that doesn't cloud your judgment, but sharpens it to a lethal, razor's edge. I saw the sickness clearly now. The diagnosis was definitive. The entitlement, the ingratitude, the profound, parasitic, narcissistic rot at the core of their entire existence. And then, as I was staring at the screen, my blood turning to ice, my mind already calculating the necessary, immediate surgical steps for excision, a new notification popped up at the bottom of his message. A small blue icon. A tiny digital exclamation point on his betrayal. Simone Maxwell liked this message. She liked it. She didn't just agree with him in private. She didn't just stand behind him. She didn't just force him to send it. She publicly endorsed it. She co-signed the insult. She clicked a little thumbs up button, a gleeful, triumphant, digital high five right there, immediately where she knew I would see it. It was a victory lap. It was her standing over me, planting her flag. It was the final, unforgivable public twist of the knife. That more than the text itself was the true declaration of war. It was the final confirmation, the second opinion, the pathology report confirming the malignancy. I looked at Bill, the foreman, who was staring at me, his face a mask of confused, impatient bewilderment. "Mom? The invoice? Are we good?" I took a deep, steadying, cleansing breath. The surgeon was in charge now. The diagnosis was made. The patient was terminal. It was time to cut. I stood there in the cold, dusty tile warehouse. The foreman, Bill, still waiting, clipboard extended, his pen poised. The $15,000 invoice, a flimsy piece of paper representing a fraction of the $250,000 monument to my own foolishness, felt heavy, suddenly absurd, in my hand. I looked at the text on my phone again. Simone Maxwell liked this. I made my diagnosis. The sickness, the parasitic infection of entitlement, was terminal. The relationship as it existed was no longer viable, no longer salvageable. The only course of action was immediate, radical, surgical excision. I folded the $15,000 invoice neatly in half, then in half again, and handed it back to a confused-looking Bill. "I'm sorry, Bill," I said, my voice perfectly calm, perfectly steady, the voice I used in the ER to command a room. "But the clients have just informed me rather unexpectedly of a significant change in plans. A change in our professional relationship. I will not be signing this. The order is cancelled, effective immediately." "Cancelled?" His face, already ruddy from the warehouse chill, flushed with a sudden angry red. "Mom, Dr. Maxwell, this is a custom order, hand-painted, from Italy. I've had my team prepping this for a week, holding the inventory. You can't just cancel it. The contract you signed, the one you reviewed," he emphasized, "clearly states there's a 30% restocking fee. It's right there in the fine print. That's $4,500. "I understand, Bill," I said calmly, meeting his angry gaze without flinching. "I'm a great believer in reading the fine print, and that fee, along with any other outstanding invoices for work already completed, or any contractual kill fees, should be sent directly to the homeowners for their immediate payment." I pulled a pen, my own good heavy gold pen, from my purse and took his business card from his clipboard. On the back I wrote James and Simone's names and their home address, the address of the house I was paying the mortgage on. "Here," I said, handing the card back to him. "Mr. and Mrs. James Maxwell. They are the clients. They are the homeowners. I am no longer financially associated with this project in any capacity. Effective now. I suggest you contact them directly to discuss any future work, or any outstanding payments." But you're the one who," he sputtered, looking from the card to my face, the full, disastrous implication dawning on him. He had been dealing with me, the one with the checkbook. Now he was being handed off to the children, the ones who likely didn't have two nickels to rub together. "Good day, Bill," I said, my voice firm, final. I turned, my back straight, and walked out of the warehouse, leaving him standing there, mouth open, invoice in hand, sputtering my name in my wake. I got into my car, my quiet, elegant, dark blue 7 Series BMW, a real one, not leased, a 10-year-old model I kept in perfect running condition because I respect quality precision engineering. I sat there for a moment in the silence of the parking lot, the dusty industrial landscape a stark contrast to the cold, clean, surgical precision of my thoughts. My hands were not shaking. A surgeon's hands must be steady, especially when making the first critical, life-altering incision. I picked up my phone. I opened the Maxwell family group chat. I saw James's cowardly, passive-aggressive text. I saw Simone's gleeful, triumphant, fatally arrogant, like. My fingers were calm and steady on the screen. I typed my reply, a simple, clean, precise response. The kind of note a surgeon leaves on a patient's chart after a complex, successful procedure is complete. "Got it, I'll give you all the space you need." I hit send. I didn't wait for their reply. I immediately closed the group chat. My next actions were swift, methodical, and executed with the same precision I would use to clamp a series of major bleeding arteries. They wanted space. I would give them a vacuum. A cold, dark financial vacuum. I didn't start the car. Not yet. The operation wasn't complete. The diagnosis was made, parasitic entitlement. The decision was made, radical excision, and the first incision, canceling the pool order, was complete. Now I had to cut the life support. I sat there in the dusty, sun-baked parking lot of the tile warehouse, and with the clinical detachment of a surgeon clamping, cutting, and suturing the major vessels, I systematically dismantled their entire financial existence in less than 15 minutes. My first call was to Arthur Bell, my private banker at the trust company. Arthur has managed the Maxwell family trusts for 2 generations. He knew my father. He knew Robert. He is a man who respects my precision and my privacy. "Arthur, good morning," I said, my voice all business. "It's Althea Maxwell." "Dr. Maxwell," he replied, his voice, as always, a calm, reassuring baritone. "A pleasure. Is everything all right?" "Arthur," I said, dispensing with pleasantries, "I need you to please activate Protocol Cinder, effective immediately." There was a half-second, and only a half-second, of stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Protocol Cinder," he repeated, his voice instantly sharp, all business, no questions asked. He knew what that meant. It was our prearranged, in case of emergency, family implosion code word, drafted by Robert's lawyers and mine years ago. It meant a complete, immediate, An irreversible financial severance of a dependent or beneficiary who has proven themselves to be a threat. Understood. Dr. Maxwell. Activating Cinder now. Stopping all automatic monthly transfers and distributions from the James Maxwell Lifestyle Trust to account ending in 4521. That's correct, I said, looking at the itemized list I had on my phone's notepad. All of them. I want you to confirm the $4,500 mortgage payment to First National, the $3,000 tuition payment to Westwood Prep, the $1,300 monthly stipend to their joint checking, all of it. Stop all transfers, effective today. Consider it done, Arthur said, his fingers flying across his keyboard as we spoke. The transfers are halted. The trust is now in a hold and protect status, pending your further instructions. What about the secondary credit cards? Cancel them, I said, my voice cold. Effective immediately, the 2 supplementary American Express Platinum cards, the ones issued to James Maxwell Jr. and Simone Maxwell. They are no longer authorized users on my primary account. Report them, if you must, as no longer in possession of the primary cardholder. I want them declined, publicly if possible. A simple cancellation will suffice, Doctor, Arthur said, a hint of dry amusement in his voice. The next time they attempt a purchase, it will be definitive. The arteries are clamped. I appreciated his medical metaphor. He always understood. My second call was back to Bill, the pool contractor who I was sure was already in his truck, fuming. He answered on the first ring, his voice a low growl. Dr. Maxwell, I don't understand. You can't just... Bill, I cut him off, my voice firm, professional, leaving no room for his anger. This is a follow-up call. For the record, my apologies for the confusion and the abrupt nature of our last conversation. As I stated, the clients, my son and his wife, have informed me via text message that they wish to have more space and that my presence and involvement are suffocating them. I am respecting their wishes. I am withdrawing my involvement, and more importantly, my funding from the pool project, effective immediately. Stop all work. Evacuate your men. Send me your final itemized invoice for all work completed to date, plus any contractual kill fees and restocking fees that you are legally subject to from your suppliers. I will review it, and I will settle my portion with you personally. Today, via wire transfer. It will be the last payment you receive from me. But what about the rest? He sputtered, his anger giving way to panic, as he realized the whale was swimming away. The marble, the custom plumbing, the 30% restocking fee on your end of the contract. That's $4,500 plus labor. That, I said, my voice like ice, is a matter you will need to discuss directly with the homeowners. Mr. and Mrs. James Maxwell, they are your clients now. They are the ones who breached the terms of our family arrangement, which was the sole basis for my financial backing. I am simply the former financier, now extricated. I'd suggest you send your bill for that 30% fee, and any other outstanding costs directly to them at their residence. Although I added, as a professional courtesy, I wouldn't expect a prompt payment if I were you. Is that clear? There was a long, stunned, and deeply satisfying silence. He was realizing he'd been working for the wrong person and he was about to be left holding a very large, very expensive bag. Yes, ma'am, he finally said, his voice now grim, defeated, crystal clear. My third call was to Dr. Evans, the headmaster of the elite, absurdly expensive private school, Westwood Prep, that my grandchildren Maya and Leo attended. A man I had personally interviewed, a man whose salary my multi-million-dollar donations to the school's endowment fund and capital campaigns likely supplemented. Dr. Evans, this is Althea Maxwell. Good morning. I'm afraid I have some financial news regarding my grandchildren. Dr. Maxwell, he said, his voice a smooth, practiced, obsequious purr. Always a pleasure to hear from you. What can we do for you today? Another generous donation to the new arts wing, I hope. Quite the opposite, I'm afraid, I said, cutting straight through his fawning. I'm calling as a courtesy, Dr. Evans. I need to inform you that as of today I and the James Maxwell Lifestyle Trust will no longer be responsible for the tuition payments for Maya and Leo Maxwell. My final payment for this current month has already been processed, of course, but all future payments beginning December 1st will need to be arranged directly with their parents. The purr in his voice vanished, replaced by a sound of pure, unadulterated, administrative panic. I see. Is there a problem, Dr. Maxwell? A dissatisfaction with the curriculum, with their teachers. My dissatisfaction, doctor, is not with the school, I said. It is a private, family matter. The parents, James and Simone, have just informed me of their desire to be more independent and to have space. I am simply giving it to them. This includes the space to manage their own parental and financial responsibilities. You will need to contact them directly to arrange their new primary payment method. I would suggest you do so before the 1st of the month, as I know for a fact their accounts can be unpredictable. Good day, doctor. I hung up on his sputtering, but Dr. Maxwell, my final call, the one that I admit, gave me a small cold flicker of surgical satisfaction. The Land Rover dealership. Yes, hello, this is Dr. Althea Maxwell. I am the primary lessee and financial guarantor on 2 2024 Range Rovers. VIN numbers. I had them memorized. Of course, I'm a details person. Yes, that's them. The ones for James and Simone Maxwell. Yes, Dr. Maxwell. Great cars. Is there an issue with one of them? No. The cars are fine, I said. I am officially terminating both leases early, as per the buyout clause in my contract. I am aware there will be a substantial multi-thousand-dollar early termination penalty for both vehicles. That is perfectly acceptable. Please send the final itemized termination invoices directly to me at my penthouse address. I will settle them in full today. Oh? The salesman said, clearly stunned. Terminate both. Are you sure? Perfectly, I said. And please, I added, delivering the final beautiful surgical cut, schedule a tow truck to pick up both vehicles from my son's residence tomorrow morning. They will, I assume, no longer be insured to drive them once my primary lease and financial backing are officially withdrawn this afternoon. 10 a.m. would be a good time. They should be home. The arteries were clamped. The life support was switched off. The financial execution was complete. All in less than 15 minutes. After the calls were made, after the financial arteries were clamped, and the life support was officially irrevocably switched off, I sat for a moment in the quiet sunlit parking lot of the tile warehouse. The dust motes still danced in the air, but the world felt different, sharper, clearer. My world. I opened my phone again. I went back to the Maxwell family group chat. As I suspected, a series of confused, weak, almost pathetic messages from James had come in during the 15 minutes I'd been on my calls. James, Mom? What does that mean? Got it? James, are you mad? I didn't mean it like that. James, it's just, Simone gets stressed. We just need a little balance. We can talk about it. James, Mom? Are you getting these? Let's talk later tonight, okay? I looked at his weak, pleading, pathetic attempts to smooth things over, to manage the problem of his mother's feelings without actually apologizing, without taking any responsibility, without, God forbid, contradicting his wife. He still thought this was a negotiation. He still thought my feelings were the only thing at stake. He had no idea what I had just done. He had no concept of the financial guillotine that was at this very moment whistling down towards his neck. It was time for the final, clarifying surgical cut. No ambiguity. No room for misunderstanding. The patient needed to be informed of the procedure's success, of the new non-negotiable reality. I took a deep breath. I typed my final clarifying text into the group chat, where I knew Simone was watching, her like still hanging there like a small, triumphant, digital trophy of her own stupidity. James, per your explicit written request for space, I have given it to you. I am respecting your and Simone's wishes. Effective immediately. To that end, I have just stopped the $11,000 monthly allowance that I have been providing for your lifestyle trust. This includes, but is not limited to, the direct deposit for your mortgage, the monthly lease payments for both of your Land Rovers, and the tuition payments for Maya and Leo's school. I have also, as you no longer wish for me to be everywhere at your home, officially cancelled the pool construction. The contractor, Bill, will be sending you the final substantial stop work invoice and materials restocking fee. You'll need to settle that with him directly, as my financial involvement is terminated. You are both adults, as you've made clear you wish to handle things on your own. I am now giving you the space to do so. All my support, financial and otherwise, is withdrawn. Have a wonderful, spacious and independent day. I hit send. I turned my ringer off. I put the phone in my purse. I started my car. The engine hummed. A low, powerful, satisfying sound of a well-maintained, German-engineered machine. It was time to go home. To my home, the one they never visited, the one they found stuffy. I didn't drive home immediately. I was a surgeon coming off a long, complex and emotionally draining procedure. I was drained, but satisfied. The tumor had been excised. I drove instead to my favorite quiet cafe, the one in my own downtown neighborhood, the one with the good strong coffee and the comfortable worn leather armchairs, the one James and Simone thought was tacky because it wasn't a chain and didn't have a brand. I ordered a large black coffee and a simple honest almond croissant. I found a quiet table and a sunny window seat. And for the first time in what felt like years, I simply breathed. I allowed myself to exist, just for a moment, without the weight of their resentment, their entitlement, their constant parasitic need. I took my phone out of my purse and placed its screen down, on the small marble table. I had turned the ringer off, but I had left the vibrate function on. I didn't need to hear it. I could see it. It didn't just buzz, it exploded. The phone began to vibrate so violently, so insistently against the wooden table that it made a loud, angry buzzing sound, like a trapped, furious hornet. It skittered across the marble, a frantic, desperate dance. The screen lit up, a blinding, non-stop seizure-inducing strobe light. It was a digital apocalypse. Incoming call James. Incoming call Simone. Incoming call James. Incoming call James. Missed call 4. The calls stopped, momentarily, as they clearly realized I wasn't picking up. And then, the texts. A digital torrent, a waterfall of pure, unfiltered, glorious, high-octane panic. They appeared on my lock screen, one after another, a rapid-fire, real-time testament to their dawning, absolute horror as the consequences of my calls began to hit them. James, Mom, call me now. James, this isn't funny. Simone, what did you do? You can't do this. James, it was a mistake. A stupid joke. James, Mom, please. Simone, you crazy old bitch. The tuition. They're calling me from the school. You can't do this to my children. Her children, I noted. James, I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry. I'll delete the text. Simone, turn the money back on. Althea, now. I'm warning you. I'll sue you. Sue me? For not giving her money? Breathtaking. James, Mom, they're calling about the cars. They're sending a tow truck. A tow truck, Mom. James, please, Mom. I'm begging you, I'm on my knees. Call me. I watched the screen light up, again and again, each message a small, satisfying burst of well-deserved consequence. I did not reply. I did not answer. I just, very calmly, took a sip of my hot, strong black coffee. It was perfect. The best cup of coffee I'd had in years. I took a bite of my croissant. It was flaky, buttery, and delicious. The phone continued to vibrate, buzzing angrily on the table. I let it buzz. It was the sound of my freedom. I didn't need to be there to know, with the cold diagnostic certainty of a surgeon predicting post-operative complications, exactly what was happening in their world. I had designed the collapse to be sequential, total, and inescapable. The system I had built to support them was now, systematically shutting them down. I drove home, back to my real home, my quiet, elegant penthouse apartment downtown, the one they rarely visited because it was stuffy, full of old things, and didn't have a yard for their brand. I walked into my library, a room lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, Robert's old leather armchair, and a view of the city skyline that could break your heart. I poured myself a small, celebratory glass of 25-year-old single malt scotch, a real one, not the blended swill James tried to pass off as sophisticated. I put on a real vinyl record, John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, pure, complex, challenging, authentic, everything their lives were not. As the music filled the quiet, peaceful air, I sat in Robert's chair, sipped my scotch, and I narrated, in my mind, the scene that was undoubtedly unfolding across town. I pictured Simone, her face a mask of pure reptilian rage, her hands shaking so hard she probably couldn't even dial her phone properly. After the call from Westwood Prep, after the call from the Land Rover Leasing Company, she would have done what she always does under extreme pressure. She'd try to spend her way out of the anxiety. She'd try to reassert her brand, her value, by acquiring something new and expensive. I pictured her storming out of the house, the one with the muddy half-dug hole in the backyard, getting into her Land Rover for the last precious time, though she didn't know it yet, and driving to her favorite obscenely expensive designer boutique, the one where she always found the perfect $3,000 stress relief handbag or pair of shoes. I pictured her striding up to the counter, grabbing the bag, the shoes, maybe a scarf, her face a mask of defiant entitlement, and slapping down her shiny rose gold American Express card, the supplementary card on my account, the one she thought was hers by right, the one she used to fund her entire influencer wardrobe. And I pictured the sales clerk, a young polite woman, swiping it. Once, twice, a small polite apologetic frown. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Maxwell. It's been declined." "What?" Simone would snap, her voice sharp. "Humiliating, that's impossible. Run it again. The chip is probably dirty." "I did, ma'am," the clerk would murmur, her eyes dropping, sensing the impending drama. "It's not just declined, it's been cancelled. Cardholder has revoked privileges," it says. I pictured the public humiliation, the hot, creeping, blotchy flesh on her neck, her chest, the other wealthy, judgmental patrons in the store, turning to stare, their whispers starting, her having to put the bag back. I pictured her trying her personal debit card, the one linked to their joint account, insufficient funds. Of course, the $1,300 stipend hadn't arrived. I pictured James simultaneously at his gallery, his phone ringing. It's not a client, it's the bank. His mortgage payment, paid by my trust, was now 15 days overdue. I timed my cancellation perfectly. "Mr. Maxwell, your payment is past due, please remit." Then the furious call from Bill, the pool contractor, his voice a roar, demanding $30,000, today for the non-refundable tile deposit and the stop work fee, as per the contract they had signed, and I had just voided my financial backing for. It was a full multi-front financial catastrophe. The house, the cars, the school, the credit cards, the pool, all of it, collapsing in on them in a single glorious orchestrated afternoon of pure, unadulterated, unavoidable consequence. That evening, as I was preparing a simple, peaceful dinner of salmon and asparagus for myself, my doorman Miguel, a lovely man, ex-military who adores me and finds my son's wife to be loud, tacky, and disrespectful, buzzed my apartment. "Dr. Maxwell," his voice was low, professional, but I could hear the faint trace of amusement in it. "Your son, Mr. James Maxwell, and his wife, Mrs. Maxwell, are in the lobby. They do not have an appointment, and they seem extremely distressed, ma'am." Insistent. Distressed. A beautiful neutral word for utterly apocalyptically panicked. I looked at my salmon, sizzling gently in the pan. It was almost done. "It's fine, Miguel," I said, checking my watch. "Let them wait in the lobby for exactly 10 minutes. Let them enjoy the ambiance, offer them a glass of water perhaps. Then and only then, send them up." "Yes, Dr. Maxwell." 10 minutes. 10 minutes later my doorbell rang, not a polite chime but a frantic, repeated, desperate mashing of the button. I opened the door. They were a wreck. A complete, unmitigated, glorious disaster. Simone's perfect, expensive makeup was ruined, streaked with real tears. Tears of fear, rage, and pure self-pity. Her hair, usually so impeccably styled, was a mess. She was wearing the same clothes from the tile warehouse confrontation. No, that was me. She was wearing some other expensive, rumpled outfit that looked like she'd slept in it. James looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 8 hours. His skin was gray, his eyes wide and haunted, his expensive suit looking slept in and stained. They didn't wait for an invitation. They practically fell into my pristine, quiet foyer, collapsing onto the antique bench my mother had left me. "Mom?" James cried, his voice cracking. He actually sobbed. "Mom, it was a misunderstanding, a stupid, stupid joke. It wasn't, I didn't mean it like that. I was just stressed." Simone was stressed. "It was the pool. You were just there. Althea, please." Simone, the queen, the brand, was now quite literally on her knees, on my priceless 18th century Persian rug, clutching my hand, her grip like a desperate, cold claw. "Please, you don't understand. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I didn't mean to like it." My finger slipped. I was stressed. I love you. We love you. We need you. Need me. Yes. That finally was the truth. "We can't live, Mom," James wailed, his voice rising to a childish, hysterical pitch. They're taking the cars, Mom. A tow truck is coming tomorrow. The school, Maya and Leo, they're going to be kicked out. The bank called, the mortgage, and the pool guy, he's suing us. For $50,000. Mom, please, you have to fix it. Just turn the money back on. Please, we'll do anything. I'm sorry, okay? I'm so sorry." They sobbed. They begged. They pleaded. They groveled. It was a pathetic, deeply unsatisfying and utterly predictable performance of desperation. I stood in my own library, the room they found stuffy. I was in my favorite leather Eames chair. I sipped my wine. I listened to Bach, and I watched them. I watched them beg and grovel and fall apart, their fraudulent world collapsing right here on my antique rug. I let them go on for a full 5 minutes. I let them exhaust their apologies, their lies, their desperate self-serving contradictory promises. Finally, when their sobs had subsided into wet hiccuping pathetic gasps, I raised one hand, just a small quiet surgical gesture. Silence. I looked at them, not with anger, not with pity, not anymore. I looked at them with the cold diagnostic, utterly detached eye of a surgeon examining a diseased, gangrenous, necrotic organ. You wanted space, I said calmly, my voice perfectly level. I gave you space. You wanted to be treated as independent adults. Adults, I have found, pay their own bills. But we can't, James cried, his voice cracking. Mom, you know we can't. Not like this. You cut us off. No, James, I corrected him, my voice still quiet, still precise. I did not cut you off. I simply stopped paying. There is a significant difference. You were not on life support, despite your current performance. You were a parasite, a very greedy parasite, attached to a host. I have just removed the parasite, and now, you are discovering, perhaps for the first time, that you have no independent means of survival. Althea, please, Simone whispered from the floor. The children don't do this to your grandchildren. My grandchildren, I said, my voice hardening, will be fine. They will, perhaps for the very first time in their young lives, learn the valuable essential lesson of living within one's means. A lesson you clearly have never managed to grasp. I set my wine glass down. The time for discussion was over. The time for terms had begun. I was not going to just turn the money back on. That would be weak. The sickness would just return. No. This required amputation. The allowance as you knew it, I said, my voice flat, is gone. Forever. That life, the one you were performing, is over. They both stared at me, their faces masks of pure, uncomprehending horror. This was not the part of the script where I relented. The Land Rovers are being returned tomorrow, I continued, ticking off the points. You will learn to use the bus, or perhaps you can apply for a car loan for a used sensible sedan, with your money. The country club membership is cancelled, the pool is terminated, and the house, I said, the house I am legally liable for, you will be selling it. Immediately. Sell the house? James gasped. But where will we live? We can't afford. You will live, I said, cutting him off, in the 2-bedroom, 1,200 square foot condominium I own downtown. The one I bought as an investment. The one you, Simone, once described as too small, cramped, and having no brand value. And the children, I added, will go to the excellent, safe public school in that district. It was good enough for your father, James. It will be good enough for them. I stood up. The audience was over. You will sell your ridiculous, oversized house. You will use the proceeds, my proceeds, to pay the pool contractor's substantial kill fees, the car termination penalties, and all of your outstanding self-inflicted, unsecured credit card debt. You will move into the condo I am allowing you to live in, rent-free for 1 year. After that you will start paying me fair market rent. You will get real jobs, both of you. James, you will find a job that actually pays you a living wage. Simone, your brand is permanently off-market. You will need to learn a marketable skill. You will live within your new, much smaller means. Not mine. You will learn the difference between a need and a want. You will, in short, finally, at the ages of 40 and 38, grow up. I looked at their shattered, defeated, utterly broken faces. They had no fight left. They had no leverage. They had no choice. They were finally, truly, in my world, the world of consequences. Those, I said, walking to the door of my library, are the new terms. My lawyer's office will send over the new binding financial agreement, and the condo lease tomorrow morning. I suggest you sign it, both of you. I left them there, in my quiet, elegant, stuffy penthouse, and walked to my bedroom. I had given them space, the 1,200 square feet of space I was allowing them to occupy, the space to finally, painfully and necessarily, confront the consequences of their own choices. The diagnosis was complete. The surgery was a success. The parasites had been, at last, definitively excised. Thank you for watching.